Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Just a stay-at-home mom?
Hey, yeah.
Come on, man. You can't call moms.
Straight Line is brought to you in part by the Toledo Clinic ENT, specializing in allergy, nasal, and sinus care.
You're watching Straight Line with Dan Rogers, President and CEO of Cherry Street Mission Ministries.
Welcome to the Straight Line, and my name is Delray Bush. Something that impacts so many people in the community is mental health. Dan, we see it every day.
Well, of course, and you know, Del Rey, so does everybody else. You know, mental health now is, and it always has been, you know, a big topic within families. We have certainly within our history as communities tried to push mental health back. There was a time in our history as a country, as the globe, that mental health was associated with all kinds of, you know, evil and disease and everything else. But you know, we have a greater understanding of the dynamics of mental health now, who is being affected, how are they being affected, how we can get help, how people can get served, how clinical it is, how environmental it is. You know, anger itself and frustration, you know, has a mental health attachment to it. Maybe not diagnosed, but certainly, you know, mental health affects all of us in some form or fashion. And of course, families are being impacted by the issues of mental health and the ramifications of it. And so, yeah, this is a great topic, and certainly mental health is a big topic of discussion in our line of work at Cherry Street Mission Ministries.
Well, something that I recently saw was a comparison. You know, you wouldn't tell somebody who just got stabbed with a knife to just get better. But, you know, it's
Correct.
easy to not understand because you can't see it on an external basis that somebody with mental health can't just get better, right?
Well, exactly. I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've heard that in my career where, you know, if you don't know, I mean, honestly, these things are said, Del Rey, quite innocently. You know, where we look at somebody who's suffering from depression or some low-grade irritation or are behaving in such a way that we just don't understand, it's a pretty easy reach to say, just get over it, get better sleep, eat better, exercise more, get up, tomorrow's a new day. And if you're a Christian, if you're a follower of God, then it frankly can't even complicate it further, because sometimes we believe within the faith communities that mental health speaks against the health of God, or that God, you know, it disgraces God in some way. And we never really say that, but we behave that. And so a lot of people experiencing mental health, even within the church, are really going through some very difficult, lonely times because of the stigma, because of the stereotype, and frankly, because we just simply as a community don't really know what to say. We don't really know how to help. And so it's really easy, as you said, to just tell someone, sleep it off, walk it off, work it off. But if you're really going through a very difficult time, it's hard to do all of that.
Sure. And we have a professional today to kind of walk us through how mental health can impact, you know, the homeless, our families, things like that.
Yeah, no question. Randy Clemens is a longtime friend of mine personally, but also was with Cherry Street about 10 years ago. Tremendous mental health advocate and a mental health professional. As soon as we get done with the commercial, they're getting ready to show you about how you help Cherry Street stand in the flame and fire of other people's lives. Randy will be with us as you come back. Let's watch together. Imagine being tossed into hell. Imagine standing there. Imagine the heat of it, the flame of it, the worry of it. Now imagine someone is standing right beside you, because they are. And you know they're not there for any other reason than you. That is Cherry Street Mission Ministries. We stand in the hell of other people's choosing on purpose. And welcome once again. As you watch that video, please understand that from our context at Cherry Street Mission Ministries, this is how we see you. You help us stand in the flame and in the fire of other people's lives. And, you know, we help you stand there as well, right there in the most critical and most damaging time of a person's life. We get to stand right there. You know, we are, on your behalf, so many times, the fourth man in the fire, where people by their own choosing have stood in places that are now bringing them harm. And this is exactly where God wants you and I to be. As a biblical church, as a body of Christ that is commissioned to end and to reverse the trends within our community, there is no greater joy than to stand really where people are standing and provide friendship and camaraderie and presence, because isn't that really at the very base what God through his son Jesus Christ does for us all the time? The Bible is so very clear that it never leaves nor forsakes. There's never any distance from us, and there isn't any peril or famine or sword that would ever separate him from us, from his love. And he would desire us to behave the same way towards others as he behaves towards us. Now, to continue that idea, I've invited my good friend Randy Clemens to join me in studio today. Randy is a mental health professional from way back. Randy, we're going to get you talking about your life and your love and why you do what you do. But first, welcome to Straight Line, and thank you for being our guest today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan.
You know, you and I go back more than 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You were, I don't know if you know this, but back in 2002 or thereabouts, you were Cherry Street's very first social worker. Did you know that?
Yeah, in addition to that, I was a chemical dependency counselor there for you as well.
Yes, you were. Yeah, and we just absolutely love the way you came into Cherry Street. You provided, you know, this real stabilizing effect in a real destabilizing environment in homelessness. How was that for you? Was that your first experience in a homeless shelter?
Yeah, that was my very first experience. I think that working at the Cherry Street Mission, as you were saying earlier, gave me a really good opportunity to really be in the trenches, working with God's people that are surrounded with so many different afflictions, specifically with chemical addictions and various mental illnesses.
Mind if I tell a story on you? I don't know if you remember this or not. I'll bet you do, because it was a pretty dynamic decision you made. It wasn't long after you had started. You were a full-time employee at Cherry Street, and you were getting ready to go to your master's program, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I was hiring a few operational staff along the way. And I had hired this fellow to work for me full-time. And so this is when I was the director of men's ministries at Cherry Street. And not long after that, after I'd hired this fellow, maybe 6 months or so, family guy, you know, kids, you know, all the nine, I received the unfortunate word from our executive team that I had to downsize my department. And so he was the last person into the staff, and you know how it goes, right?
Right.
I had to go to this fellow and let him know that we're going to have to reduce his hours dramatically, and you caught wind of that because you and I were working closely by that time. And you, do you remember this?
Yes, I remember it very well.
You came into my office and you sacrificed your own hours so he could stay full time.
I remember that, Dan. I remember the sacrifice that you were making as well in terms of making decisions about who you were going to keep on. And one of the things that I've always been thankful for is that you had made the decision to keep me on full time. And you know, I think at that point in my life, I was looking at a faith, a sacrifice in terms of trusting and believing God so that that other person you're speaking about wouldn't have to make that sacrifice. And you know, it's funny, I never even knew that you even remembered that until me and Christy were talking about that the other day.
You know, it was a dynamic thing for me because it was indelible. Because I asked you if I could be very honest with this staff member about it, because I felt like this was such a tremendous gift. It shouldn't have, for this fellow it shouldn't have been gone unnoticed. And this fellow that you and I were talking about, he wouldn't have wanted to not be in the know of what you had done. And you and I decided that we would be very honest with him. And the reason why it's so indelible is not just the tremendous gift you gave to him and to his family, but it's indelible because of the way that he reacted to it. He was a new Christian, and the way that that cemented your gift, cemented the gospel of Jesus Christ deep into his life, that frankly, he was with us for another 10 years before he moved on. And he grew in his faith. And I know, Randy, I know that was an early example of God in his life. And I want to just thank you for that now, 10 or so years later, and how God used you and your gift to really promote him in this fellow's family.
I appreciate knowing that. And I think for me, the gift came whenever you do something by faith, and certainly that was by faith because at that time I didn't have any permanent position.
Well, you weren't independently wealthy, were you, Randy?
No.
No, so.
But you know, God provided opportunity because right
Yeah.
after that I had left the Cherry Street Mission and began working at Fireland Hospital, and there I began working on my licensures in mental
Yes.
health. And you know, thanks to you, because you actually gave me a reference letter for my Master's Social Work program. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do.
But here I am today. I have my LISW supervisory designation with it, and
Yeah.
I'm also independently licensed with my chemical dependency licensure as well.
Oh, good.
But you played a role in that, gaining the experience working at the mission and getting the reference that you provided for me. So I think that was kind of a trade-off situation where God really
You
brings
definitely
back.
saw it that way, you know. And I'm just so grateful because, you know, it got us here now some 10 years later. And here you are still working in the community. You are deciding now to accept a position with one of our tremendous partners in the downtown area. And we wish you well in that.
Thank you.
And believe God will use you in that organization extremely well. And frankly, Randy, from my perspective, it'll be great to have you back in the neighborhood. Because the organization that you're thinking about is within just a few blocks of us, and again, they're great partners.
Yeah, there's a real big need in terms of serving the mentally ill in the community, especially in shelters. We need experienced people that have that working knowledge of the mental health field,
Yeah, no question.
because there's such a large population that are being sheltered in homeless shelters.
Yeah, no question. Well, Randy, let's use that then to cue up our topic today, because as our viewers heard a moment ago, today's topic is mental health. We ask you to come on today specifically to help our viewers understand. And here's really where I want us to go, Randy. Our viewers today are, you know, God-fearing and are more than likely regular church attenders. You know, mental health is pervasive over all societal strata, that there is no, you know, demographic that is immune.
Very
So
true.
pastors, church leaders, congregants are having to deal with this topic. But as Del Rey said at the top of the show, most of us, Randy, don't know what to do other than throw up our hands and go sleep it off, right?
Right.
So where we're going today, let me just get you started. Randy, why is this a personal issue for you? Why choose this career path for you?
Oh, you know, I never intended going into the mental health profession. I think sometimes God directs you in ways that you're going when you don't even realize it. But I think personally, maybe on a subconscious level, having family members, specifically my own father, has been diagnosed with a major mental illness. So
Okay.
I think maybe that had been maybe a more subconscious reason. But I think on a professional level, and specifically on a Christian level, God, He calls us to really defend those that are vulnerable. And I don't think there's any more vulnerable population than the mentally ill population.
Okay.
And I think that they're probably one of the most misunderstood populations. And even as you were talking earlier before this show started, even within the Christian realm, I think there's misunderstandings
Of
and
course.
misperceptions about mental illness. And, you know, I think sometimes we just tell people, oh, just get over it or move on. And I think with the research today and with the knowledge that we have today, we're becoming to understand it more of as a organic issue with the brain's chemistry versus just a psychological issue where a person can just get over that.
Well, let's quickly mine into that a little bit, because I know we've got pastors watching us today and church members that will perhaps forward this link to their pastors. Let's sit on this for a quick minute, okay? What would you be able to say, resources that you could put into pastors' hands who are experiencing people that have, at least in their mind, may have a mental health issue? Of course, pastors aren't, in most cases, going to be clinically aware to imagine a diagnosis when we wouldn't want them to. They wouldn't want themselves to. But Randy, let's talk to church leaders and church congregants today. They've got somebody in their congregation that they seem to need help, more help than worship is providing or Bible reading is providing. What are some of the easy things, and I say easy because none of the things we're talking about are easy,
Right.
but quick-handed things that our members of our church family can be aware of and do or read or participate in to be more aware and to be more equipped for the men and women we serve every day?
Well, I think it's important for churches and congregations to be aware of community mental health agencies that are
Okay.
involved in serving people that have mental illness, understanding that there is a professional basis for helping people with mental illnesses, and that even though the power of God can intervene in someone's life and provide healing for them, there are natural institutions like psychiatric hospitals and mental health facilities in the community that can be and that is a big part of that healing process that a person can recover from. So just as any kind of illness, as pneumonia or cancer, anything where a person would seek professional help, that same professional help is there for the mentally ill. And it's important to know the facilities in your communities and the agencies involved with that help service.
Well, let's bring it down to the pew level. I'm sitting beside somebody in my congregation, and clearly they are presenting in a way that is beyond my abilities, right?
Right.
What are some simple things I can do with that person sitting right next to me?
Well, I can take an example from when I worked at your facility at the Cherry Street Mission. I remember an instance where we had a guy, he was very paranoid, and he was afraid that people were staring at him and that they were plotting things against him. And I remember just a real simple solution at that time. We actually had all the patrons that were at the facility go in the back where the bedding area were. And we intervened through calling Rescue Crisis, which took them a pretty long time. And I think that's one of the problems in terms of getting those resources together.
Service delivery.
Exactly. It was about a 2-hour period, and this guy had a knife on him. And it wasn't that he was seeking to harm other people. He was just afraid that other people were attempting to harm him.
The paranoia had gripped his mind and his heart.
Completely. And fortunately, I was able to dialogue with him enough and gain enough trust in that moment when he had seen how I isolated by bringing everybody away from him and him by himself, that he was able to give the knife over to me. And eventually, Rescue Crisis did come, like I said, like about 2 hours later, and they did a quick assessment, and they took him to their facility. So it's real quick interventions like that, but being familiar with Rescue Crisis, as I was at that time, was a real important factor in that intervention.
So let's just be quick, as you're watching today's show, if someone is presenting harm to themselves, Randy and I are talking, as you're hearing, as people that are involved in this work every day, so our reaction to these kinds of things can be a bit different than yours. Let me just be quick to say, as you're watching today's show, if someone has a weapon on them or is going to be a harm to themselves or to others, please, right, Randy? get the emergency respondents involved right away. We certainly wouldn't want, church members to be thinking, well, Randy and Dan, so we should disarm them in some way, because certainly we're not
Right.
asking our viewers to engage in that way. Randy, what about simple things like try not to talk somebody out of what they're feeling?
I think that's very important. One of the things I think that is a misinterpretation about mental illness is that many times people look at it through a behavioral aspect
Yeah.
versus an organic brain chemistry disorder that's
Oh,
going
right.
on.
Right.
So just because of what's going on with their brain chemistry, that's going to create a distortion in their reality and their thoughts and their perceptions about what reality is.
Okay.
So trying to argue with someone about their reality
Yes.
in terms of what they're experiencing isn't
Right.
very effective.
Right.
Especially when I find listening a lot, trying to find some kind of common ground to be able to dialogue with what they're experiencing and what they're stating to you is really important to listen to.
Yes. Yeah, no question about it. So friendship, again, camaraderie are very important. I can't emphasize enough to you, the viewers today, listening is so key, right, Randy?
yes.
I mean, just being present and helping people. And try also listening visually. What the person is saying to you can be easily picked up by what you see.
Right.
And watch for those cues. And then lastly, I think, Randy, on this topic of how we can help our viewers, is never work alone.
That's very important.
Yeah, talk to our viewers about the importance of always having someone else with you.
Well, it's nice, going back to that example, the staff that I worked with, we were all together. In fact, I remember one of the staff I had directed that actually had the patrons go to the back of the room. So that person's directly involved, and another staff is actually the one that made the phone call to rescue crisis. So
Okay.
we had a very cohesive, I think, friendship in addition to being co-workers. So that was very helpful in working together. And
Yeah.
I think it's important that one person not do anything alone or in isolation
Always,
of
yeah.
the people they're working with, that everybody is a part of it.
Yes.
So it's not one person creating the solution, but together, everybody working together to
Yeah,
find
it's
the
so
solution.
very, very important. One of the things that we always train our staff to do is when you work in tandem, one of you engage the individual, and the other person really is the extra set of eyes, extra set of ears, particularly if someone's experiencing some clinical diagnosis of paranoia or bipolar or anything of that nature. Then if you're both talking to them, they can't, the brain chemistry really can't
Right.
keep up with that.
Right.
And so having someone that really is just standing there watching, listening,
Yes.
supporting is
Yes.
really, really key. Randy, just in a few moments that we have left, just personally, what drives you every day to do what you do?
In the jobs that I've worked at, the thing that drives me is, I think, the compassion and wanting to help people that I know that God would and has called us to help. So that's my faith is a big part of what I do. And I don't think that my credentials are just given to me to serve myself, but they've been given to me by God to serve other people. And I think that's a lesson that Christ has taught us, is that even as he came as our ruler, he was still our servant ruler.
Yes, so key.
Exactly, and we have to be that in our professions as well as in our Christian walk with God.
That's great. Randy, thank you so much for being here today. You are such a tremendous community advocate and a people advocate. We really deeply appreciate the way that you're serving your community and the way you've served our church community here today. We wish you well. I look forward to seeing you back on the block and how God is using you in the uptown and downtown areas. And for more information about how you can be involved, please always just drop me a line at danrogers@cherrystreetmission.org. We can dialogue about how you can be involved. And as we roll to the back end of our program, will you take a quick look and see how you are engaging in daily services and provisions every single day in your community by your financial support and your engagement. Let's take a look together. You know, Cherry Street Mission Ministries from 1947 until this very day has always been about people. People like you, people that come through our doors for a wide range of reasons. So when you financially and prayerfully support Cherry Street, you are actually making an investment in life revitalization. And I think one of the cool things about that is we're all about revitalizing and transforming every life that comes through one of our doors, no matter what the reason. That's the great thing about your support and your investment of Cherry Street, is the way that lives are transformed and changed. Well, Delray, you know, Randy is just a great, you can see why I like him so much,
Absolutely.
right? He's even-keeled. He just loves people, loves God. And when he was at Cherry Street, we just loved him to death because of the way that he came at all situations. Matter of fact, I don't know what Randy looks like frustrated. I'm not entirely sure. I want to get him frustrated to find that out. But just a really lover of people, and it was great having him back on the show. As you're watching the show today, mental health is a big topic. We'll come back on this topic in a few months and just revisit it and continue chatting about it. But Delray, what did you learn today?
Well, I think, like you said, Randy loves people, and that's so important to have those type of people around someone who's struggling with that mental illness and having that good support system. But, you know, it can get, I mean, there's behaviors that you might not be used to or you're not sure how to deal with. And it's important to get those professionals involved and get the best team in place to, you know, sit alongside that person and get them better.
Yeah, no question. I can't stress enough how important it is to just close the distance between you and somebody else. And of course, do it safely. If someone is really presenting in a very negative way, a very boisterous way, you're going to want to put some distance between you and that individual. So just be careful as you think through this. But be careful enough where you're reflective and you're thoughtful. You're certainly engaging the Holy Spirit in your daily activity with human beings. You know, never approach another person swiftly. I always encourage people, you know, just, you know, because we're also very unique, Delray, and the way that God works with us. You know, as you have supported Cherry Street Mission Ministries over the year, this is what you do. You allow us to absolutely stand in the gap for people, but also to stand in the gap for you. I don't know if you would see us this way or not, but we're kind of your avatar. We're the people behaving and standing in corners, and we're your surrogate. We're the people that are in the middle of the streets chatting with people, on the corners chatting with people and loving people the way that you know that the gospel of redemption would want us to do, and your faithful support allows us to do that. Did you know that for just $104, your support absolutely changes and transforms lives? For that $104, my goodness, you can do so much the way that you change lives for a single individual. And for that, you have provided so much activity, so much work goes into how you support. And by the way, if you are praying for Cherry Street, can I just thank you for that? Because the way that you pray, the way that you bend the knee, the way that you stand in the gap for us prayerfully is just really, really incredible. And if you haven't done so lately, come on down. Visit us, stay with us, volunteer with us, be engaged in people's lives. And Delray, as they do, tremendous things happen.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.